What is up, guys? Today I told myself it's probably a great day to stream because I need it. I need to break away from the matter that has been occupying my mind too much, because if I don't do that, then I run the risk of shutting down, and when I shut down, I don't function again until that time constraint induced, or rather time constraint induces anxiety, and then that's when I start scrambling. I don't want to do that. I want to be able to handle things one little bit, one little piece at a time. So today I saw a trend on the wonderful world of Twitter that Apple is being sued. It's being sued because it appears that they have a monopoly on the smartphone market, if I remember correctly. And when I think about it, I think, well, they have competition. There is Microsoft's Androids and stuff like that. So what is really going on? And then it got me thinking that I have never really talked about Microsoft. Maybe I have mentioned here and there that when it comes to their computer software, I know it better because that's what I grew up with, and I didn't get exposed to iOS that I can personally recall until I was the owner of an Apple iPod Touch third generation back in 2009. But sometimes I wonder if when I was little, those computers that I used earlier on, way earlier on, were Apple. Because I feel like I saw an Apple logo on some of them, but I could be misremembering. But what I can tell you is, based off the title of this stream, what I gravitate toward. So, personally, when it comes to computer software like desktop, laptops, I have always been Team Microsoft. I vividly remember in my house Windows 98 being the first software that I could say I spent decent amounts of time with. And this was courtesy of a laptop that my mom was provided by her school, or I guess a school district. She never really used it that I can recall for school purposes. I genuinely do not remember her doing anything on it or with it. But I can say that we used it to play the games that were available there. Young Sly says, I'm Team Zam. Hi, Zam. Hello. Good to see you around here. And I just remember very vividly that it looked super pixelated, but at the time I thought it was the greatest thing ever. And another one of my favorite things to do was to type, because I've been a writer since forever. But something about trying to learn the order of letters before I ever took a keyboarding class was fun for me, because it really confused me. I kept asking mom why they wouldn't arrange the letters in alphabetical order. And of course, I was always slow as shit. And when it comes to using paint, it was horrible. I never drew anything that we could say was worthy of being printed and put in a frame. And my greatest frustration was that stupid game called, was it Minesweeper? Anyway, it's this game that it looks like a square, and within it there are a bunch of other tinier squares, and you randomly click on them, and sometimes you may hit, I think it was numbers, and other times you may hit a mine, and then boom, game over. And I never understood the point of that game. Could it be like Battleship, where you're just supposed to figure out the plot of where the ships are as you call out some coordinates and guess at it. I was never clear on that. So anyway, outside of the games, Windows 98 was really not something that I can say I explored much with. It was just my introductory course in what a computer looks like. And another thing that I can recall is that that computer was never connected to that internet, because at home, I don't recall us having internet until like the year 2003. And I just thought, okay, this is it. That's all a laptop does. It allows me to play games and you can type things up. And there's a bunch of other programs in here that just don't do it for me. They're not entertaining. So by that point, I was kind of like, okay, I don't see the point to a computer besides it looking like a tiny TV with letters that I can put into the screen. Then eventually, the most vivid experience I have of fully immersing myself in a computer experience was Microsoft XP. I believe that was the software on the computer that I had back in the year 2003. It was a desktop computer, a compact desktop, and something that I was telling my mom either last night or the night before is that I never quite noticed the moment when desktop computers stopped having a tower. I haven't had a desktop computer in over, I want to say 15 years now. And while I was at work, it never dawned on me that the computer monitor that I was using also had the tower, the motherboard, I guess, incorporated on the monitor. And I just remember it dawned on me one day that I was asked to completely turn it off and turn it back on manually because something happened to it. I forget if it froze, if it just stopped responding and not even Control Alt Delete could fire up. I just had to press the power button, and then I said the only power button that I see is this one, the one on the monitor. And then I was told that that was it. And I was confused because I was so used to having two power buttons to press to fire up a computer, the tower and the monitor. But I sincerely could not tell you at what point we transitioned to towerless computers. And all I can remember is that when I was in school, I had computers that had both pieces. And I want to say that when I started working, because I went many years without needing to be in an office, then I cannot tell at what point our computers went towerless. And I just know that when I use my laptop, it's like, oh, this is simply a foldable version of my computer at work, but I have known of this foldable computer since forever. Now, when it comes to the interface, I think that Windows XP was my all-time favorite. Despite its relatively poor security, if you ask me, I feel like computers that I owned that ran on XP seemed to get viruses pretty often. I don't know if it was simply because at the time, that's just the nature of it. Like some people really knew their way around security, whatever security looked like at the time. I don't remember there being so many authentications. Like, you know how Google has that two-factor authentication thing? I don't think we had such options back in the day. I just remember that occasionally I could be just casually browsing Google and then visit a website, especially something like song lyrics. That's usually the thing that I would actively look up. And somehow in those websites, there were some stupid ads on the edges of the pages. and I wouldn't touch them, I wouldn't look at them, but some pages were pretty aggressive about their ads, and some of them were pop-ups, and somehow not even having a pop-up blocker could block all of them. And sometimes you could, by mistake, as you were browsing the page, click on something, but at that very second a pop-up popped up as well, and you end up clicking on that shit instead. And maybe that's what might have led to some of my computers ending up being like corrupted, because maybe somewhere on those stupid websites something like that happened. And on emails such as Yahoo, that was my very first email account, I remember that on, I think it was in the inbox, there was like the border of the page had ads running on it. I forget, it's been so long, but I just know that those stupid ads were everywhere. And I feel like stumbling upon files that would mess up your computer was just easier back then. But when it comes to the interface, I loved the start button. I liked how you could press the start button and then go to like programs, and it was just really simple because it came up as a list. But the present interface is more living up to its actual name, which is Windows. And I feel like you have a window on top of a window and another window and another window, and I just can't. I have never had to use the search button so much on a bloody computer as much as I have had to use it in recent times. And then Windows Vista, I remember seeing it on someone else's computer, but I don't remember actually using Windows Vista. I remember Windows, was it Windows 10? Whatever software we were at back in the year 2012 through spring 2014, that was the last time I had real time sitting with a computer for personal purposes, like recreational purposes or whatever it was. And I remember when my mom got one of her streaming computers. I wasn't even sure what a streaming computer is. To this day, I still don't know. But I learned the hard way that they are computers that don't necessarily have a lot of memory. But I still don't understand what it means to use it for streaming. Like, is it just for streaming for the purposes of using it as a video player, a stream player, for you to throw onto a bigger screen and enjoy it in that fashion, but you're not really meant to store files, such as creating projects with, I don't know, Movie Maker, Audacity, or anything like that. So I just know that that computer died within about 2 years, maybe. And I was frustrated, but it seemed like the interface on that one was still pretty normal. It was something that felt very simple for me. Now, presently, I have a computer that I got my hands on back in December-ish 2021. And oh my God, it was appalling because now you gotta use something called the Microsoft Store. And I sincerely am not used to that. The only store I'm used to messing with is the App Store from Apple and the iTunes Store. But I have never had a Mac. I only know of online browsing for apps through the Apple interface, mobile interface. And you can see where this is going. I'm like about to do a slow transition here. But I just know that with Microsoft, I have no recollection of needing to do such a thing. I really don't remember ever going to a Microsoft store to download programs. I feel like back in the day, if I needed a program, I would either need to physically buy it, like say Microsoft Works. I remember going to Walmart and buying that program. I think it was like $80 back in the day. It had word processor, publisher, Excel, PowerPoint, and was that it? I think that was it. And I remember having that. You had to go to your little tower, press the button for the disk thing to open up, the tray for it to open up. You place the disk, you close the tray, and then it would fire up, and you had like a wizard guiding you through the whole installation process. And anyway, it would do its thing, and a bunch of computer shit would happen. Your program is installed, and then after that, you have the entire program installed after you type in that product key. But um, after that, I sincerely don't remember having experience with actually installing just the apps. Like, I understand that Microsoft Works is an app, but I envisioned it differently because I just looked at it as just a program that I had to install in order for the app to become available. But when I was using a computer, I did not think of them as apps. I did not start calling those things apps until I took computer apps classes. And then I thought, oh, somehow I was never taught that those things were apps. I became more familiar with the word app when I got my hands on my iPod Touch third generation back in the year 2009, because there was something called the App Store, and then I understood that those apps that I could obtain from the App Store that would install into my little device would become the programs. But because that little device does not have like a CD portal, instead of getting programs that are physical, such as a CD to listen to music, now you have a digital version of CDs. I understood that now you have digital versions of programs. Even though programs have been software extensions, or I guess I could call them add-ons this entire time, I never pictured it that way. But when CD trays became extinct, that's when I was able to associate that, all right, now the way to obtain a program is to download an app. Now I can transition to tell you about how I am an absolute Apple lady when it comes to mobile software. I love iOS. I think it's genius. I think it's simple. I think it's it may be limited in how you can actually customize your screen. Like, I like to look at my laptop and be like, I can change the color of the glass, I can change the theme, I can change all those things. But when it comes to an iPhone, the most that you could do for the longest time was just change the background, like a picture or something. And when it came to the rest of the appearance, there's really not much else that you could change. And to this day, except for the whole widgets that you can arrange in a certain way and whatnot, there is still a lot that you cannot customize on an iPhone. Whereas I feel like maybe the Android phones would be more suited for that. They might give you more personalization options. But I personally, on my phone, do not care for that too much. In the computer, sure, I want to have more options because I always think of computers as inherently more powerful than phones. But when it comes to mobile, I have used Androids. I should say I have borrowed Androids, and I just could never, ever figure them out in a way that I was just confident about it. I remember having a flip phone and how quickly I could figure out how to use it because the transition was just very simple. But when it comes to transitioning from iOS using something like a mobile device, such as my iPod Touch, and understanding that my iPod Touch has an interface that if you know how to use that, you can pretty much pick up an iPhone and know how to use that. And if you pick up an iPad after having an iPod and the iPhone, you can use an iPad, then I was wondering why the transition from a Microsoft desktop view to mobile view was not as obvious and wasn't as smooth. That miss frustrated the crap out of me. And there was a time in which one of the things that I somehow figured out that I was extremely proud of was when I was borrowing an Android phone. I forget how I did it. I think it was an accident, but I figured that you can take a screenshot by sliding like the side of your hand from right to left, and that would take a screenshot. Don't ask me how I figured out. I just know that something happened. I heard the flash. I think it had a shutter sound too. And next thing I know, a photo file that had a screen capture showed up in the pictures folder. But most of the things that I needed to do on that phone, I had to freaking Google. And one of the things that I can say I liked that those phones could do, and I'm talking about the year 2014, 2015, it was that you could split screen. On an iPhone, as far as I know, you cannot split screen. But I have seen on iPads that you can split the screen. But there are some apps that deprive you of such a function. But I just know that when it comes to user friendliness, I think that the way to go is the iPhone. You cannot get any easier than that, any simpler than that. And to illustrate it to you guys, I just like that it, first of all of the apps are in a linear kind of fixed manner. To me, seeing things linear is really organized. Of course, you have the option of organizing your apps. The way that I have my apps organized, it's email is first, and then the calendar, and then the weather, and then settings, map, iTunes Store, the camera, photos, notes, YouTube, YouTube Studio, iMovie, and then anything related to content watching, such as Netflix, which I don't even have, Disney Plus, Crunchyroll, and then social media may kick in, such as Twitter, Signal, WhatsApp, and then shopping apps, just two of them, and then the portal for my apartment complex, and then banking. I have everything arranged based in order of importance. And then I have some food apps, such as Starbucks and Chick-fil-A, and some frozen yogurt place. That's about it. And then anything else that's miscellaneous. But for me, that is what I wish that my, I guess, Android experience looked like. The way that apps are displayed on an Android, it doesn't seem very neat for me, because somehow they have like this giant widget thing, I guess, that occupies about the maybe 2/3 of the screen, and then on the bottom, that's when apps begin to display. And sometimes there are, oh god, how do I describe this? When you're browsing the internet, like their web browser, on iPhone it's called Safari. I don't know what it's called on Android, but I just know that there are some freaking buttons on the screen that I do not know how to find, because you kind of have to like gesture somehow on the screen for it to come up. And an example of that I can give is that most Androids have like the bottom of their screen is like solid, but there are actually buttons in there that light up, and in some cases they don't light up, but you have to know that those buttons are there. Some of them, one button that I remember, it's like squares. I think that's like the app browser button where it turns into like windows. And then there's like a back button, whereas on iPhone you can just swipe to the side and that takes you to the previous page, something like that. But you also have arrows. And as you're browsing, let's see, let me give you an example. Um, like you can just do that and you'll see that that little thing comes up. But on Android, those buttons are like hiding on the very bottom. And then in order to not confuse myself, I'm like, hold on, like Android, Microsoft, nobody ever describes a Microsoft phone like, oh, I own a Microsoft phone. People say Androids. So I want it to be like, let me confirm that Androids are legit by Microsoft, because sometimes it confuses me. And then it said, oh, it's a trademark of Google. So there's also Google phones, but it just gets confusing for me, because then I think, okay, at what point is that an Android? Like, do we have different lines? Like, Android is their one line of phones, then you have Google phones, then you have Pixels, whatever they have. It's just confusing. Whereas with Apple, it's like, okay, iPhone, the iPhone XR, the iPhone 15, the iPhone 15 mega big, mega bigger, and stuff like that. You just know what to expect with Apple. But for me, Microsoft has never been very obvious. So to avoid tripping myself, I'm like, okay, let me make sure that these phones whose names I have in my mind are actually all run by the same company. But see what I mean? For me, I feel like iPhone really spoils you if you're not very gifted with computers. I really think that when it comes to mobile, it doesn't get any simpler than that. But there are a lot of people who I know who swear that Androids are so much better. But when they ask me if I know how to do something on those phones, I'm like, I cannot show you. But if anyone ever hands me an iPhone and they ask me to do something, it's like, hell yeah, I can take that mug, pull it apart, I can make it create documents, I can edit on there, I can even access things to say I take a screenshot of something and I know how to edit it to like highlight some things or type things over it or include new graphics or something. I can do that mess on iPhone, but don't ask me to do that on an Android phone. I have no idea. And it's just, it doesn't make sense to me. I really don't think that Androids are that obvious. And I remember 10 years ago, somebody was telling me that if I'm such a Microsoft lady, that if I opt for an Android, that I'm going to have a great time with it because the transition is smooth. And I was like, hell no. To me, sure, the interface is different because, you know, Apple has its Apple things, but for you to tell me that using an Android phone is the same as using a Microsoft computer, like desktop view computer, it isn't. Now, the Mac, I can tell you that I have only used it for about 10 seconds at an Apple store. I just looked at it and I said, it's not very obvious to me how this works, but I have been told by someone who isn't necessarily great with computers that once they figured it out, you never go back to anything else. So maybe one day I could consider exploring it, but I am in no hurry of doing that because I have enough as it is with my current Microsoft laptop. I feel like I'm only using like 2.5% of my computer's capability. But in conclusion, I am team mixed. When it comes to mobile software, I prefer and will die for Apple. But when it comes to desktop computers, I'm a little bit undecided now. I have not experienced like 2024 iOS when it comes to Apple. On desktop mode, but if I'm very confused with Microsoft and Microsoft is the thing I've been raised on, then would iOS be good for me soul when it comes to desktop? Um, I think that what killed me when it comes to my understanding of Microsoft computers now is that from the year 2016-ish until 2021, shit, let me say 2022 because I got my computer late December 2021. I missed out on using a computer, like having my own computer at home to mess with and experience the upgrades of software. So for me to go from whatever version we had in 2014 jumping to the 2022-ish available software, it was incredibly jarring, and to this day it still is. I have to use the search button for everything. The only thing that is about the same for me is that when I need to uninstall a program and I use the search button, the uninstall wizard thing still looks the same. But outside of that, I'm done. All right, I'll catch up with you guys now. Hello, JP. Good evening, Zam. I remember those towers. I remember going to shop for a room desk. The criteria was to have a hidden compartment under the table specifically made for the desktop tower. Yes! And you better remember to open that mug up because most of the cables and wires, of course, went through the back of your desk, but there were some desks that had that compartment section open. Those were so much better because if you had it enclosed, that mug would heat up and then the fan would turn on and you could even smell the dust coming up from up there, from down there, whatever. And it was just awful. For me, the most stressful part was ensuring that the cables somehow did not just intertwine, because no matter how much I tried for cables to just live in harmony, they would just get tangled somehow. And I never really got to experience wireless mouses or or keyboards until my present day computer, because I am lazy and I got tired of getting up from bed to like click on the next video that I want to watch. So now I have had the wireless mouse and I used to use the voice commands on my laptop, but that dumbass never understood what I was saying. So then I said, I have to buy the keyboard. And I think it was like back in November, I finally got my keyboard. And now I'm just too spoiled. But outside of that, I just do not miss desktop computers because of the tower. But now I think it would be jarring for me to personally have a desktop computer that doesn't have a tower. But the thing that worries me about having a desktop computer is, how is it different from a laptop now? Because I feel like a laptop is just better portable, more suitable for you taking it to multiple places, whereas a desktop feels more fragile. See what I mean? And when it comes to software, was there ever a true difference between software capabilities from desktop to laptop? I sincerely don't remember. But I feel like the display on my laptops felt a little cleaner, a little bolder, and the ones from desktop computers felt a little more pixel looking. Maybe because the monitor had like a glass screen on it, whereas if you ever pressed on the screen of a laptop, like it would turn into like liquid. It would look like you were pressing on some kind of liquid behind the screen. I don't know, but I don't remember what the software differences were, if there were any. Let's see. Zamri, hello, my favorite female on earth. Hello to the king of my channel. Actually, Apple phones are overrated. You can do way more on Android phones. I have heard that. People only like iPhone because it is user friendly and basic. Exactly. Like that's what I was gonna say. That the reason I think people opt for Android is because y'all just need all those. Y'all are extra, so you need the extraism that those phones provide. Whereas I am super simple, and that's what I like about the iPhone. How stupid simple it is. And if you are imaginative enough, you can make the iPhone be a phone that is fun to have. But I do think that there are certain things that we're definitely slow to progress when it comes to iPhones. Because to this day, I haven't figured out if there's a way to, using a basic app, not like a pro version of a picture editing software. I haven't figured out if there's a way from maybe the Photos app, and then when you edit a picture, if there's a way to copy a photo, paste it onto another photo, and have a split screen of it. Does that make sense? Like, this is what I do. If I have two pictures that I want to have in just one photo, side by side, what I do is I will, let's see, let me give you an example. Let me find two random pictures. Okay. Let's say that I want to have, oh, here, I have a perfect example. Like, if I want to have shoes like that, side by side in one picture, what I'll do is I'll freaking screenshot the two that I want side by side, crop the image, see like what I'm doing right now. Boom! I have my side by side picture now. But I want to figure out if I can have, say, the pink shoe be the original photo, and then this one, copy it from another picture and then paste it to have them together as one picture. That I haven't figured out. If there's a way to do it using like this editing button up here, whatever they call it on the, what do you call it again? Anyway, that button that edits things on the iPhone. But like I said, if you're creative, which to me that's as technically creative as I can get, then you can make it work. And another thing that I'm loving about the iPhone is whenever this came out, the whole screen capture where you could record a video of you using the phone unless you start playing like a video or something, or excuse me, recording a video, because of course you cannot capture something that you're already recording. But I thought that was the coolest thing ever, because sometimes I wanted to guide someone who wasn't necessarily in town at how to do something. And what I would do is screenshot one fucking instruction at a time, use like a highlighter symbol, draw circles, and then send the text and be like, so you want to click on this, and then this will pop up, you'll click on this. Nothing like that. Now you can actually observe me in real time doing it, and I'll send you that captured video, and then you can do whatever you have to do. That became my favorite thing, and I thought, oh, with this, I'll be able to create videos. But back in the day, when I figured that out, I really didn't know how to edit because I didn't have that iMovie app. That's what I used to produce the jump cuts that I produce in my videos for you guys and trim like 3 minutes off every single video ever that I post. But yeah, you guys, see what I mean? That's stupid. The whole screenshot them side by side so that they can be in just one picture. That's stupid. But for me, it works. I'm surviving with the basics that I have. But I understand if some of you guys need more because that's just what you're into. But me personally, the simpler the better. Like, trust me, I don't like computers. but I feel like I can create hacks for myself with them when they get confusing, but not always. And for me, currently, when it comes to Microsoft Desktop View, the thing that has been messing with me is I used to use Paint to take a screenshot and then press Control V for it to paste onto the program. And if I had to crop something or draw a circle around it, whatever, I knew how to do that perfectly. But now it changed to where when you press the screenshot button, the screen goes like black, and you have to like select the area that you're screenshotting. And I'm like, bitch, I want the whole screen screenshotted. Why are you asking me to crop this? If I wanted to crop it, I know exactly what to do. But now when you screenshot, it prompts you with that thing. And when I try to edit it now, and I try to use whatever version of Paint they have going on now, I don't recognize the symbols anymore. What happened to my retro looking icons? Now I'm confused. So yeah, I can't win with Microsoft. So little things like that is what makes me wish I got to try, I guess it's called the Mac, like Apple's version of a desktop computer, so that I can judge if I can transition from this bitch to that. Like if I can go from mobile to desktop on Apple, like iOS, and have a smooth experience. Because as I described, I can't go from desktop to Android at all. But I can use this thing all day long and shit, I'm good. But Microsoft, I feel like they're trying to truly become literal Windows. And I think that the basic Windows XP version of software they had was the best. But you guys know that I can be a little slow at progressing with computers. And I think that what kills me is that too many updates have come out since I left school, and I have had gaps in my computer usage, like that exceeded 5 years. That maybe that's what killed me, and that's why I find it daunting now. Let's see, where are we at? Love to see internet just stop. Imagine how society would react today. You know, if you've been on my channel long enough, any of you, you guys might remember that I think it was in the year 2017-ish. I had to ship my phone out to fix the bend gate situation that the iPhone 6 Plus had, that Apple denied forever. And anyway, my touch screen was messed up, and in town the repair shop told me that they had to ship it to someone in their team who didn't live in state, and I went a whole month without having my phone. I felt great. The only thing I missed, of course, was creating videos, because I got spoiled by it as my supplementation to my journal. But during that month, I learned that my iPod was the most important thing for me, because I needed my music. And funny enough, if you guys don't know, my iPhone is actually the result of my mom misplacing my iPod Touch by accident for about 2 or 3 months. I need music, especially when driving, because otherwise I just cannot focus. So I lost my iPod, and I spent about a week looking for it. Then I just accepted that somehow it disappeared at home, and she found it in the midst of a bunch of papers that she had on the table the day that it disappeared. And then after that, I said, look, I just cannot do this anymore. So this was a massive sacrifice for me back in the day, but I embarked on the journey of buying my first iPhone. And I remember when I got it, I was excited and thrilled, because I thought internet is now with me everywhere that I go. Everybody always had their mobile phones with internet, and I was still like, I didn't have a flip phone. I had one of those that you could slide and the keyboard was like right underneath it. And I loved that thing. I loved the physical keyboard. But I liked it because as a kinesthetic learner, I could type without looking. But touch screen was much friendlier and healthier on my joints. So I said to myself, having my iPod's keyboard capabilities on a slightly bigger screen is so freaking cool. And I just like that it enabled me to have access to things, because I broke my computer in spring 2014, and it wasn't until the first week of September 2015 that I didn't have any way to access the internet on my own personal time. Like, the only time I could use the internet was when I had my iPod with me and I was at work, and during my breaks, or maybe hanging out for a little while after I clocked out, I would use the store's Wi-Fi and then go home. And I think that we got rid of the internet when I was at home. And then, because of course I broke the computer, and mom's computer was working at the time, but not at max capacity. And then we moved out. We never got the internet again. To this day, we still don't have home internet. But I just remember the struggle of things happening and me not being on top of that stuff. And that's why a lot of internet things that happened back in 2015, I missed out on. And any channels that I followed for long term that put out content during that time, I've been seeing some videos come up on my recommended that are like 9 years old. And I'm like, how did I miss that? And then when I see the posted date, I'm like, oh, 2015, like say January, February, March, April, anything pre-September, I missed out on. So it's like that time in internet history, computer history, I missed out on. And I'm imagining that during that time, computer softwares were also dropping. And until Ma got that streaming computer, whenever that was, I was like 0% in tune with anything happening. And I remember that when MGS5 came out, I was using my iPod. Sometimes at nighttime, I would pull up at a parking lot where there was internet, especially supermarkets that have like a broader coverage. And I would hang out there just to use the stupid internet for like 20 minutes and then come back home. And then I said, maybe one day I won't have to do this anymore. And that's when I got my phone. I had no life. I just wanted to catch up on everything that I had missed. But at the time, I looked at me breaking my computer as a blessing in a weird way, because I thought that it was teaching me to not be so dependent on it. But in a sense, not entirely, because I still had my iPod. And in the end, we still needed to get a computer because at some point, Ma needed it in general for her job. So I tried escaping the computer involuntarily. I accepted that, hey, me breaking it meant that, well, I don't exactly have the means to buy a new one. It took me, how many years is that? Between 2014 and 2022? It took me all that time to get a new computer. And then the month that I didn't have my phone, I realized that all I need is my music. And I had access to it and I was fine. And I wasn't as desperate about going out and about looking for internet. But it was a little disorienting to not have a phone on me to be able to text people or say receive calls from my mom at random times. But yeah, I can say that it wasn't particularly unhealthy for me. It wasn't like, oh my god, I'm trembling without my phone, nothing like that. But it did feel weird because people would tell me, have you heard about this and that? Have you seen this and that? And I'm like, no, it's all over online. And I'm like, who told you that I've been online? I haven't been online in 2 weeks now. Huh? What? How? Broke computer, phone is getting repaired, no other choices. Is that difficult to grasp? So, I don't remember ever really needing my mom's phone for anything during that time. And even if I needed it, she was always at work. So it's not like I could just take it from her. But yeah, that was a pretty interesting time to be disconnected. And no regrets. I had no regrets. Let's see. I really wish I could stop the scroller every time I read a comment. Got my first iPhone last week. So far, it's too complicated. Android is convenient. I will say iPhones have better cameras. You know, when it comes to cameras, I had been at a little bit of a divide because I felt that back in the year 2015, I could have swore that an Android from 2014 that I was borrowing from someone had better picture quality than my iPhone 6 Plus. But I want to say that my iPhone 11, which is this mug right here, this definitely spoiled me. But I feel bad that most of the time I was using the front camera, which to me, this front camera is significantly better than the front cameras I have seen on their tablets. For some reason, I don't know if you guys agree with this, but I feel like the front cameras on their tablets tend to be really grainy. And it reminds me of my laptop's camera. It tends to be like grainy. And rear cameras have really stepped up their game. And I really don't care for that whole whatever the third lens is supposed to do. Like the fancier iPhones have like 3 cameras. First of all, I think it looks ugly. Like it looks like a spider having a ton of eyes, you know. But I feel like this is good enough for me, and I never really have a need for the wide lens. I think the bottom lens is like the wider one, and the top one is like the regular lens. And I can say that I have been spoiled by how at nighttime this phone, well, naturally, is the newest one I've ever owned, but I was impressed that even with very little lighting, you could take a picture to where you could kind of make out what you were taking a picture of. Whereas in the past, using a phone camera at nighttime was not happening. It was just game over. You could forget about it. And yeah, so that was one of the things I was excited to upgrade. But then I told myself, what is the point of me having this fancy lens if I'm never using it? Because when I'm vlogging, I'm always using, the viewfinder. And to have the viewfinder, I need to use this one, which is tiny, but I can say it did a good job, especially if you support it with good lighting. And that's why I started vlogging more from my car or my bathroom sometimes. And eventually I was able to get my hands on a ring light. So that was a game changer, but at some point I just did not enjoy having a ring light shining on me. So anyway, I must say that I'm proud that I have a camera with this level of power, but I'm also sad that it's not something I use very often. And speaking of cameras, when I had my digital camera before its battery died, I used to be out here taking pictures. I love taking pictures of trees and all kinds of things and be artistic with it. And even when I was a passenger, because I wasn't driving at the time, I would just take pictures of all these things. But when I got my iPhone, I told myself, hell yeah, I'm gonna be taking a ton of pictures because now I have a way of uploading pictures, clearing out my camera memory. Basically, I have infinite picture taking capabilities now. But with my digital camera, it's not like I ever maxed out my memory that quickly or that often. But I hate it that I had to wait to get home and plug it onto the computer, that little SD card, to browse through my photos and then upload them to, I don't know, Facebook or MySpace so that I could delete them from my camera. Oh! But now that I have the ability of take a picture and immediately get rid of it, upload it, I swear I don't take as many pictures anymore. I think it's because I miss having an object dedicated to that. I liked to keep things separate back in the day. Like I had an iPod for music. I had a cell phone for calling and texting. I had a digital camera for picture taking. But to have a device that takes all of that, this is my MP3 player, this is my camera, this is my internet browser. Like it just wasn't working for me. It wasn't computing on my noodle. So I think I just miss the feel of a camera doing camera things, camera only things. And of course, because a camera dedicates to picture taking, the camera that I had definitely beat the hell out of any other digital camera I ever had, like anything incorporated to this. I am appreciative of how far Apple has come with these camera lenses, but I can tell you that I miss A, the quality of those photos, B, the act of having an actual device dedicated and specialized in picture taking. And I don't know, maybe that just killed my drive for taking pictures. I just don't take as many pictures, and that makes me kind of sad because that's something I really enjoy doing. But I guess I like to take more memory pictures more than actual physical pictures. Now I like to stare at something and absorb it. And I know that what my eyes see is a better memory than what my phone can capture. I know it's a stupid thing to say, but I feel like back when I had my digital camera, sure, I could notice something and be like, oh, I want to remember those cloud formations. But sometimes I felt like I was missing out on living in the moment, if that makes sense. But yeah, you're right. I do love me iPhone cameras. And I cannot believe, Jay, that you find an iPhone complicated, but that's what this topic is about. Some people can really transition into Android software better, and other people just can't. Some people can use both, and I admire those people. Imagine all the computers just gone. I should write a book on this, how society would crash. I think we have become overly dependent and reliant on them. I mean, even cars need Wi-Fi to update some software or something. I don't have a car like that. But I remember asking someone who does, I'm like, wait, hold on. You mean to tell me that you at some point need to connect this thing to the internet so that the little screen that you have changes? What? So there's that. And then cars just in general have some kind of computer, and when that thing acts up, it's going to be hard to repair. And even when you go to the hospital, everything is on the computer now, computers and tablets and phones. Like, it almost seems like even at your job, you need to have your own smartphone so that you can do some things, like download a specific app there to help you be more resourceful as a worker. And that's crazy to me. It's crazy. Let's see. But yeah, you should definitely write a book. If you have the thoughts on writing a book, always write the book, no matter what it is. Alpha society would collapse. Too many people on the internet for business. It would be funny since I have trade skills. And oh my God, speaking of internet businesses, I'm an example of that. I have the clothes that I try to sell and stuff. And sometimes I do try to imagine if something happens to this thing, I'm kind of screwed. Because imagine me trying to take a picture holding my giant ass laptop. But anyway, if all computers were to disappear, regardless of whether mobile or desktop, yeah, that would suck. Because at least I can count on that not being a viable thing for me anymore. I cannot imagine a life in which I'm physically going around promoting whatever I'm trying to sell, and especially not setting up a stupid shop. Like, I enjoy the fact that I can handle this from my home, from my room. And then I would miss making videos too. This has given me an opportunity to share thoughts with a broader range of people that otherwise I wouldn't have. Like, the conversations and topics I have had here, I haven't had in some cases outside. I haven't had with anyone else ever. So that would be a little bit of a downer, because I have enjoyed putting myself out here and finding people interested in sharing their own thoughts based on that. And of course, at some point, I was able to meet the criteria to where I can make some money here on YouTube. And even though it takes a while, I'm really grateful and proud that it's an option that I have. And it's not like I was not doing this when I wasn't getting paid. Like, I think I became part of the partner program back in 2018. So I went 2 years steadily making content, not having any idea that this thing could even pay people. That's not something I was aware of. YouTube for me was about watching people creating funny content, but I wasn't really aware that people legit made a living off this. Like that, maybe I missed out on the time frame when that was being expressed. In the year 2010, for example, I don't remember people saying that they were making money on this thing, anything like that. So yeah, it would suck for the people who have nice established businesses that they actually make a true living out of it. I make a supplementary living off this, but it's not like I can rely on this at all. Like my clothes, I've been lucky that I have had 2 sales today and 1 sale yesterday, and cumulatively those sales only got me $15-ish. And then on YouTube, this is like an accrual type of thing. Like, it isn't until you hit $100, and it depends at what time you hit the $100. And then in the next period, the next month, between the 21st through the 27th of the month, that's when you can expect the payout. It's painfully slow, because the kind of content I make and will continue to make is not like the type that the, I guess, algorithm favors and feeds with CPM and stuff. And, that's fine. But at least I'm enjoying the fact that I don't have to feel guilty about having this hobby, and it's just an absolute waste of time. At least the 5 cents that this stream is probably gonna make, I'm going to eat them all up. I remember when my videos, like back in 2017 or 2018, whenever I got started with the partner program, they used to make like 3 cents, 8 cents, and I thought that was the shit. And now it seems like they average at around 20-ish cents or so. And it doesn't sound like much, but when you have over 1,000 videos that people are beginning to find, it's like, oh, the algorithm gods are smiling upon me. But I can tell you that and be relaxed about it, because again, I don't rely on this. But when I think about it, I try to imagine a life in which this is the grind that I know that supplements me, or sorry, maintains me. And I'm like, if the internet were to go down for like 2 weeks, I'm screwed. But it would be cool if I could make about as much as I make showing up to my retail job and then make that online back to back. That would be awesome. And oh, that person has a Siberian Husky. It big. But yeah, yeah, I'm glad that people have this as an option, but I particularly don't like the dependence on the internet. It's kind of scary. Let's see. Hold on to those skills. A big solar flare could do it. This is true. I need that book. Please write it. Yeah, please write it. And if you can, create an audiobook version of it too. Scary how we relay on internet today. I sincerely did not see that coming. When I was using the internet way back when I was a kid slash teen, I always looked at it as something optional, something that could be a supplementation of entertainment more than anything. I never really saw the computer as a tool outside of you envisioning something and creating a neat version of it to be reproduced. So what I mean by that in simpler terms is, let's say that I want to create a flyer, as opposed to hand drawing it using a marker, and God knows how dreadful my art skills are. But as opposed to doing that, I can throw that on a computer. It will be neat. It won't have smudges. And I can print a ton of copies of that. I always looked at a computer as this is for creating documents or to supplement my entertainment via access to music, kind of on demand. Because at the time, the only thing I remember was Rhapsody, that website. And that was about it, really, for access to music. And access to movies, if it wasn't on YouTube around the year 2008, when I first had my exposure to YouTube that I can recall, maybe 2007, I think that was my earliest, then I wasn't watching it. And back in the day, what I remember people were doing was like parody versions of anime episodes. Like, I think they were making parody things about Metal Gear, but I didn't necessarily get to all of them until maybe the year 2010 or so. See what I mean? So it really depends on what your interests were back during that time. But yeah, these things have come a long way. And for me, the thing that scares me the most, but also impresses me, is the fact that in school, I learned how to, I guess, write a check. And I don't remember learning how to balance a checkbook. But I do remember learning something about calculating the principal and the interest rate on things. But I learned that as a math problem, not as a class that was giving me financial literacy. I never had such a class. But yeah, the fact that my money, I never actually see it in cash. I only see like numbers on an app. On an app, like I don't actually have to go to the bank to have a, I guess, checkbook balance thingy, but also for me to say withdraw $20 and the receipt shows me how much balance I have. Like, damn, I'm spoiled. I like that I can access it at any time, unless it's undergoing maintenance conveniently when I'm trying to pay my credit card. But all I'm saying is that when I was a kid, I dreaded growing up and having bills, because I remember having to go to the utility offices to pay them. Like the electric company, go to their office to pay, and go into the water company to pay, and go into the office of any apartments that you rented to pay, and having to buy money orders or checks and having to handwrite that and sign that shit. Hell no. Now all you do is tap a screen, because it's not even a physical button. It's not a button like that. It's a screen, and make it happen. So to me, that's pretty jarring. I'm grateful that my time is not wasted like my mom's was. I just remember mom having to plan a day to spend driving to those places to leave the payment. Oh, I mean, I love driving, but something about sitting in a place just staring into the distance, or having a book, or I would probably be using my Game Boy to, if I had it, to pass time at those offices, until your number gets called. Or when you have to queue. Mega, so I ain't gonna front. I'm glad that in that regard, I have it significantly easier. And imagine, as horrible as traffic is nowadays, if we still had to all show up to our place to pay for those utilities, and those utilities being due at the same time, and all of us monsters congregating in that same area at the same time. Shit. I'm spoiled. So as much as I hate computers, I can say that I can appreciate that is an advantage. And especially, say, if I'm out and suddenly it hits me that, oh my God, I gotta pay my electric bill. I can just seize the day, and anywhere in the globe that I'm at, I can just be like, okay, access the portal, submit the payment, and it's over. I don't have to worry about, oh shit, I'm like 2 towns away, and I don't think I can pay my utility bill from 3 counties away, So I think it's very nice that we have that versatility now. Let's see. Where am I at? Scary how we rely on internet. Really thinking about it, we have Gen Z and Gen Alpha. All they know is technology. Yes, that. I cannot imagine a life in which I go to school, in elementary school, and immediately my way of learning and doing things is straight to the computer. I remember having to do things physically, like having to carry pencil, paper, pens, having crayons, construction paper, glue, those things. But now you're pushed to learn computer skills so much, because that's really bread now. That's really what brings the bread now. Okay, take care. I love all 3 of our feminine AI overlords, and I bow humbly. That's a funny comment. Why I like Android phones is if it drops on the floor, it can take a hit. If you drop an iPhone, the screen will break before it hits the ground. When it comes to iPhones, I have never had the screen shatter on me. And the only thing I can say it has happened, it had a little tiny ass scratch that I think happened because maybe my keys or something slid across it. And my iPod Touch, same thing. The only damage it had was some very, very tiny scratches. And this phone, the only flaws it has is, I guess I dropped it one time and it landed on a corner. And this corner, it has a little bit of a dip going on. And it made me sad because that happened within, I think it happened within the year of me getting it. And I was disappointed because I thought, I swear, when I dropped my 6 Plus, it never dented like that. And the only Oh, that's another thing. My 6 Plus does have a little bit of a similar dent going on. And the only time I saw that dent appear on my 6 Plus, it was about, let's see, I had it in 2015. I let it go in 2021-ish. I think that dent happened to it in like 2019. And I was like, wow, my 6 Plus don't play. It was really resistant and you could feel it. But now I feel like this phone is like, it's shorter. Like when it comes to like top to bottom, the height, it's like shorter. But somehow I feel it's thicker. Its body is a little thicker, and to me it's a little heavier than my 6 Plus. And I felt like this was much more fragile than my 6 Plus because the back of it feel like it's made of some kind of glass. So it wouldn't surprise me if I were to drop this mug without the case that I might see the back crack. And the good thing, another cool thing I like about this phone is that when you shine the flashlight, the entire back body of the phone actually lights up as well. But I think it's useless when you have a solid ass Defender case and that is, you know, disabled. It makes me super sad. But anyway, I think that it was a nice touch to the design. But stop making the cool things happen when you have to protect this thing and cover it up, you know? It's a bummer. It becomes a bummer at that point. I have never used an iPhone. How do you take a screenshot on it? Bruh! I will happily show you, JP, if you're still there. But I personally have the little, there's this little button that you can enable under accessibility, which in a sense, it's like you could call it that disabled people's shortcut, even though that's weird to say. But the reason I call it like that is because it's under accessibility, and accessibility seems to be the thing that accommodates any individuals with special needs, such as, do you need the screen to be displaying specific colors, and do you need help touching the screen? You can create gestures for anybody who maybe has motor issues. But to take a screenshot, if you have the accessibility button enabled, which is this thing right here, you can press it, it'll expand, and these are the shortcuts I created for it, and it has screenshot right there. And then it does its thing. But if you wanted to do it without the accessibility button, on this phone, it's the volume down button and the power button, unlock button, I believe. Let me see. Shike, lied to you. I think it's the volume up button. Yeah, it's volume up button and the lock screen button is the way to go. But if you want it to be button free, that's what you do. You use the accessibility option. And this is not like the freaking Android where you can just like use the side of your hand and that's a gesture, that screenshots. Nah, nothing like that. Now, I am aware that on tablets, if you slide the bottom left corner, like if you start from the bottom left corner and diagonally, like upwards to the right, you swipe your finger from the corner, it takes a screenshot. But I'm not sure if it's like the iPhone, where if you press the lock button and the volume up button, it would also do it. That I would owe it to you. And I also know that you can enable the accessibility button on that too. And then it also has that screenshot feature because you can transfer those skills very easily. And now that I mention a tablet, I have seen at work this giant ass tablet that it has the display of a computer monitor that goes to, like, I guess you can call it sleep, before you awaken it for it to prompt for the user to log in. You know how it has like the time in big numbers on the left side, like the lower left corner, and then the background turns into like nature type of things, and then it goes, do you like this photo? Learn where it is. And it has like a camera symbol on it. I've seen a tablet that has that very screen. And of course, very evidently, that is a Microsoft software, but I have no earthly idea what the name of that tablet is. I mean, that tablet is huge. It feels like it's the size of a computer monitor. And at work, people use it to, I think it's for inventory. And I'm like, how do you carry this thing? I mean, when my colleagues are using it, it's like they're carrying, what can I compare that to? I don't know. It's just massive. And I've been willing to ask what tablet that is exactly. But it almost feels like you're carrying a TV, a miniature TV with you everywhere. I think it's ridiculous. Let's see. Do any of you peeps watch Ben at Suspicious Observers? Never heard of it. Anyway, peace everyone except Microsoft, unless they decide to bow to Siri. She's wild. Oh my god, Siri, first of all, the voice is a male voice, and I like how you can ask it shit nowadays, and it actually gives you some pretty smart responses. And I remember a little while back I made a video about that, and it has gotten significantly better, but I also kind of miss the simplicity of it back in the day. And it's kind of cringe to me that because it's a stupid AI, it tries to act like it has a more human tone. I remember original Siri as much as I remember the original Apple Maps that everybody hated. And I'm like, why do y'all hate this Apple Maps? It's clear, it's clean, it's easy, it's the best GPS I've ever used. But then when they upgraded it to where you can even have the 3D look to it and it'll show you buildings and stuff, I'm like, people just won't be happy with anything. And I found that GPS easy to use because it highlighted the route you had to take. But now the screen is very busy. And the one thing I will give it that I can say I like is that in anticipation, it shows you the lanes and which lanes you should be in for the next maybe exit or entrance that you need to make or take. See what I mean? But I think that the map itself, like the picture, the design of the map, it was great back in 2015. But then the present day version, I feel like I react better to the instructions more than the actual display of the map. So sometimes I like to give the map a little glimpse to kind of confirm what I heard if traffic is heavy. But because I have a watch now, I learned the tones on it because it has different sounds based on which turn you're making. If you have to keep going straight, it has like one beep. And if you have to make a right, it has like a specific pitch to it. And if you have to make a left, it has another pitch to it. That helped me mute the dictation on my GPS. So I actually don't use sound on my GPS now. And all I have to do is listen to that little chime that my watch makes, and I know exactly what kind of turn I'm about to make. And when it makes the sound, it's because immediately the next entrance is where I have to turn. But yeah, I think that the GPS did not need to be all, fancied up. Nah, is it a movie or TV scenes? Is it good? You are right. Windows XP was the best and Windows 7 was the second best. I want to say I did experience Windows 7. Maybe that was the last I had another desktop computer after my 2004-ish compact computer like expired. I want to say the desktop computer we had around the year 2008. It might have been one that ran on Windows 7. The last software that I remember that wasn't Windows Vista, the start button was circular. It looked kind of like it was crystal, and it was blue. And then the XP start button was the green rectangle. No, it wasn't a rectangle. It kind of curved a little. Rectangular oval looking thing. Nah, is it a movie? I already read that. I'd rather buy a new phone or even the same model phone and fix it myself. I don't trust people to resist the temptations of looking at my browser history or my saved pictures and videos. So the first thing they did for me when I shipped out my phone, it was they gave me my SD card. Or is it called the SD card on a phone? SIM card. The SIM card. Androids have better cameras. It has been shown by people who love cameras. I do agree. I have to say that when I tried the like my friend's Android back in 2014-ish, 15-ish versus my iPhones, me personally, I thought that the Android beat the hell out of my iPhone. And it was definitely provable because I looked at that picture that the Android took, and I took like, I forget what we took a picture of. Maybe it was like our car tires or something. I took a picture, and then they took a picture, and we sent it to each other, and the resolution on my phone wasn't even that good. I think that picture was like too crisp, quote unquote, for my iPhone to process. Does that make sense? So I think that the display on Android can be better than the display on iPhone. And that goes for the camera as well. I'm not even gonna lie. I'm not even gonna debate that. I'm not even gonna fight you there. But as someone who's simple, I can say that the iPhone cam is good enough. I have to run, sorry to leave, but I will catch the rest of the live stream later. Good to see you live again. Well, good to see you too, Garuda. Thanks for being here like always, and I'll see you later. Hey there, beautiful. Sorry I joined late. No problem. And Shaq says Team Android. Wow, I had a feeling in my gut somehow that most of you here were going to be Team Android. Don't ask me how. I just got the vibe that you guys gravitated more toward Android. And like I said, I can understand. For me, using an iPhone is just a cheat code. It's extreme simplicity. But I think that simplicity is important because the point of this thing is for it to be something that you can be productive with. Whereas with me, if I were to have an Android, I feel like I would be consumed by figuring out how it works, and that learning curve would be super slow for me, that I just give up on it, I get discouraged. And don't feel bad about joining late. I don't exactly announce when I'm going live, Well, you guys, that's about it. That's about all the thoughts that I have on phones and technology and Microsoft versus Apple. In the event I remember something substantial, maybe I'll mention it in a video or demonstrate it if I can. But I will say that I will always be, very possibly until maybe I get to experience iOS full-time in desktop mode, I'll be a Microsoft computer lady, but I'll be Team iPhone when it comes to mobile. I'm just too spoiled at this point. All right, thanks so much for tuning in, and I will see you soon, hopefully.